The one mistake that makes living together unbearable. I read that after the quarantine ended in China, the number of requests for divorce shot up. People found that being forced to live together became unbearable because they lacked the skills needed to live together in a peaceful way. This is one of the reasons why we have the Vinaya. The rules are there, not simply to look after the individual's mind, but also to look after peace in the community, harmony in the community. So as we're living together, it's good to think about the principles, not only the rules, but also the larger principles of how we can live together peacefully in harmony and be admirable friends to one another, and how that can further our practice. There are 4 qualities that the Buddha said are useful for making any community peaceful, happy, where people live together with a sense of wanting to live together and benefiting from it. The first principle is generosity. You don't think only of yourself, of what you're getting out of the situation, or what you want out of the situation. You try to take other people's wants and needs into consideration as well. And if there's anything you have to share, you're happy to share it. We hear so much about hoarding right now. There's an old Thai riddle where they ask, if you have a fish, how can you arrange to eat it for a whole year? The answer is that you take part of it and eat it yourself, and you share the rest of it with other people. That way, when they get something where they have a little bit of extra, they think of sharing things back with you. This back and forth of sharing can go on, not only for a year, but for many years. This principle applies not only to material things, but also to time, energy, knowledge, and forgiveness. The more we cultivate a sense that we have enough to share, the greater sense of wealth we develop. So even though there are restrictions on where we can go, who we can see, you can constantly keep in mind that you still have more than enough, and you learn how to look objectively at your sense of what is enough. You realize that it may be a lot less than you thought. If you have more than that, then you can share. As the Buddha said, when you're sharing, you don't want to share so much that you're harming yourself, but you've got to take other people's willingness to share into the calculation as well. You set a good example. There may be some people who follow and others who don't, but you never know who's going to follow it unless you set it. This is why generosity always comes first in so many lists of the qualities of the teaching, with the realization that if you're going to gain anything good in life, you have to be willing to give first. Of course, you have to look at what you've got and see areas where you have more than enough. That creates a sense of abundance, a sense of wealth. It's easier to live in constrained circumstances when you feel that you've got abundance within those circumstances. And having a sense that we're all in this together makes it a lot easier to put up with other people's idiosyncrasies, other people's foibles. There was a group of monks I knew who went up into northwestern Thailand and lived out in the forest. At first, they were living very meager lives, in the sense that there wasn't much in terms of material support, so they shared quite a lot. As a result, the sense of group loyalty and group identity was very strong. Then they started getting more and more outside support, and some of the monks started hoarding. Soon, the group fell apart. Hoarding comes from a sense of poverty. Even though you may have a lot of things, as long as you think you're poor, things get worse and worse. So the willingness to give creates a sense of wealth, a sense of spaciousness inside, and a sense of spaciousness within the group. That's the first principle. The second principle is kind words. This doesn't mean that you never express criticism, but when you do express criticism, you express it in a kind way. Show respect for the other person. The number one thing that destroys a group, destroys a relationship, is contempt that one person shows for another. I know of cases where people complain that the other people in the group don't like them, but as a result, they immediately show contempt for the other people's attempts to be polite. Well, it's because of the contempt that the other people don't like this person to begin with. So if you have something critical to say, stop and think about what would be the best time, the best place, the best way to phrase it, to show respect for the other person. Don't just blurt things out. This is one of the principles I learned living with Ajahn Fuang, that how you phrase things makes a huge difference. Sometimes in the evening, I would come up to his hut with a question. Thai was not my native language, of course, and I tried to put together a question in a way that seemed okay to me, but it struck a nerve in him one way or another, and so the question would never get answered. But then I realized that the problem had to do with the way I broached the topic, so I had to think about how to say something to him, how to make a request without making it sound like I was imposing on him or trying to get him to do my work for me. I had to phrase the question in a way that showed respect. Over time, I got better and better at it because I was forced to think. As a result, I developed a skill that I could use with any senior monk. So always remember that the way you say things, the tone of voice, the words you choose can reverberate around for a long time in other people's minds. This means you have to put thought into your words. When you put thought into your words, other people will be willing to think about them. The third principle is that when you help other people, you genuinely help them. You don't do things simply to make points that then you will then collect as return payment. Always looking into, what does this person really need? What can I do to help that person's genuine needs? That kind of help goes to the heart. Again, you put thought into the things you do for other people, and they'll be happy to think about them as well. And then finally, consistency. I once read a psychology book saying that if you're consistently helpful to other people, they don't really appreciate it. So if you want their appreciation, be inconsistent, which is a really selfish way of looking at things, trying to milk every little bit of appreciation out of people because of your help. Consistency is a virtue that you benefit from. After all, when we meditate, we're trying to make the mind consistent. As Ajahn Lee points out, we're taking something that's stressful, the way we breathe, the way we experience the body, and making it easeful. We're taking something inconstant, the way the mind moves around, and we learn how to give it some constancy. We're taking something that's not self and trying to bring it under our control. In each case, we're trying to develop in our consistency, and we develop that quality first through the consistency with which we live our daily lives. Now, if you're going to be consistent in how you help others, the way you interact with others, you've got to learn how to talk yourself in a way that makes you enjoy it, that you take pride in your work, pride in the fact that you're reliable. This way, you create a better environment within your own mind and in the world around you as well. So these are some of the principles that the Buddha would have us keep in mind so the group can get along, even in difficult circumstances, so that our enforced time together doesn't drive us apart, but actually strengthens the group, strengthens our practice, creates a good emotional field around the fact that we're here together practicing the Dhamma, something that's really good. This is a rare opportunity. Appreciate it. The more we appreciate how valuable this opportunity is, the more energy we'll be able to put into trying to maintain it and to do it well. Put the other person's heart in yours. You probably know the Buddha's simile of the acrobats. One acrobat is standing on top of a bamboo pole, His assistant is standing on his shoulders, and he tells her, "You look out after me, and I'll look out after you, and that way we'll come down safely after having performed our tricks." And she says, "No, that won't do. I look out after myself, you look out after yourself, and that's how we'll come down safely." In that instance, the Buddha said, the assistant was right. He went on to say that as your practice, when you look out after yourself, you look out after others. When you protect yourself, you protect others. That's the message we tend to take away from that passage, because that's the message illustrated with the simile. But the Buddha then went on to say that in protecting others, you protect yourself. This is a quality, a fact, that has to be emphasized. The Buddha never saw a clear line distinguishing your well-being from the well-being of others. Ideally, your well-being and their well-being should go together, so that in looking out after them, you benefit. There are 4 qualities you develop as you help protect others: endurance, goodwill, equanimity, and the Pali term for the last one is Anukampa, which can be translated as sympathy or kindness. In looking out after the welfare of others, you develop these qualities, and in doing so, you protect yourself from a lot of bad karma, a lot of unskillful attitudes in your own mind. Endurance, of course, has to do with putting up with people's foibles, the little things they do that drive you crazy. You remind yourself they don't have to drive you crazy. They're not unbearable. What's unbearable is your thought. This is unbearable. That weighs you down. But if you can focus on what's good in that person, and you can focus on what's bearable in the situation, then you're not going to react out of anger. Now, the Buddha's not saying that you don't try to correct people when they do something wrong. He's simply saying you learn how to do it with endurance. In other words, come from a place of peace, a place of solidity in your own mind, a place that isn't fearful. Then you can deal skillfully with the situation, and the other person will sense that you're coming from a skillful place too. If you come from ill will, a sense of being oppressed, the other person will pick that up, and that'll block that other person from wanting to cooperate with you. So try to focus on things that you can endure, and on your ability not to let yourself get in the line of fire of other people's words, other people's actions. That way, the situation is more and more endurable. And that way, you benefit. You build up an inner strength, and you protect yourself from reacting to situations out of anger and desperation. The same with equanimity. The difference between endurance and equanimity is very subtle. Endurance has to do with the fact that you don't react in word and deed to things you find hard to stand. Equanimity has to do more with staying neutral, keeping the mind on an even keel in spite of the ups and downs in any situation. Here again, you're learning how not to weigh yourself down with emotional baggage. When there are some things you can't change, then if you're focused on the things you can't change and get frustrated and upset about them, you waste your energy. There are things in the world you can change that you can make better, but you waste your ability to be helpful there if you focus on the things you can't. So don't let your emotions get in the way when you deal with other people. Focus on where you can make a difference, and the situation will be a lot easier to handle skillfully. This, of course, has to be coupled with goodwill, that you wish for the other person's happiness. The biggest danger that faces you in the world is that you might do something unskillful under the influence of ill will, because that then becomes your own karma, and it becomes a habit in the mind. It bends the mind, as the Buddha said. When your mind is bent in that direction again and again and again, your views are going to be warped. Your attitudes, your further actions are going to be warped. They're going to incline in the direction of being unfair in a situation, either because you like somebody, or because you don't like them, or because you're confused, or because you're fearful. These are the 4 wrong courses. We tend to fall for them from lack of endurance, lack of equanimity, lack of goodwill for all. So learn to spread thoughts of goodwill around for all. In that way, you protect them from your unskillful actions, and you protect yourself from your unskillful actions. The 4th quality, Anukampa, we translate as kindness. It goes together with empathy, sympathy, having a sense of how other people feel, putting yourself in their place, or as the Thais say in one their nice idioms, take the other person's heart and put it in your heart and see how it feels. Take their feelings into account. In these days of intersectionalism, we're told that people of different genders and different races and different combinations of genders and races can't understand one another. That kind of thinking divides us and makes it impossible to live together. To counteract it, try to develop this quality of empathy, sympathy, kindness, putting the other person's heart in yours and seeing how it feels. So many people nowadays are consumed in their own emotional wounds. This has been the effect of psychotherapy. Get people talking, and they talk about their wounds from the past, and that becomes the big fact in their lives. Then everybody else has to take that into consideration, put up with it. The fact that this person is going around wounded and is fixated on his or her wounds. But when we're fixated in this way, we don't understand one another. We lack empathy for one another's feelings. Everybody's wounded in one way or another. But everyone has strengths. Everyone has their good qualities, their bad qualities. If we want to learn how to live together, we have to learn how to take the other person's heart and put it in ours and see how it feels. This is one of the principles underlying the precepts. We were talking a while back about the precept against killing, and someone said, well, I guess the Buddha made this precept because life is sacred. And I said, no, the Buddha never said life is sacred. That idea came from wanting to understand the precepts without ever having to think about karma. Karma underlies everything the Buddha taught. Virtue, concentration, discernment. These things are all karma. The path is a kind of karma, and you have to understand it that way. As for the rationale behind the precepts, as the Buddha said, do you want to be killed? Do you want to have people steal your things? Do you want to have people have illicit sex with people who are dear to you? Do you want to be lied to? Do you want to live in a society where people are drunk? Well, no. Well, then don't do those things. Do you like to be spoken to in a harsh and malicious way? No. Then don't go do those things. The precepts are there to keep you from creating the kind of bad karma that will cause bad things to happen to you. In this way, you protect yourself as you protect others. So as we live together, and we're always living together in one way or another, make sure that you take the other person's heart and put it in yours and see how it feels. That way you stretch your heart and it will grow. And in having empathy for that other person, you're benefiting yourself. Years back, a Buddhist magazine was doing a series on the Bodhisattva vow. They asked me to contribute, so I wrote a little piece on the Sutta of the Acrobat, saying how, ideally, looking after your well-being and looking after the well-being of others should not be in conflict. They didn't like the passage. They didn't run it. Theirs was the idea that you had to sacrifice your well-being for the well-being of others, and that was noble. But the Buddha knew something nobler than that it is possible to look after your well-being and the well-being of others at the same time. And that's the vision we should keep in mind.